Son of Claude Lemieux, Brendan has proven to general spectators and NHL fans alike that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I was pretty hated. Hopefully he's not as his father. I hope he doesn't get to that level.
As in number 48, since being drafted in 2014, has given us plenty of jerk moments to talk about already. With his most recent atrocity, reigniting a rivalry that spans through 2 generations, Lemieux, as Brady TKACHUK has put it, can come across as a quote, bad guy. Therefore, in case you didn't figure out the main antagonist of this video yet, we'll be going over 6 different jerk moments from Lemieux himself. And with that, here are the top 6 jerk moments from Brendan Lemieux. So, if you're a heavyweight that routinely drops the mitts within your class, well, then an act such as this is straight up trolling at its finest. Yes, a surprise, I know, that Lemieux would pull a Corey Perry type move on his opponent while showing 0 class in the process. Anyways, close to the midway point of a regular season game in NYC, things quickly began to heat up between Lemieux and Ducks defenseman at the time, ERIK GUDBRANSON. As Lemieux had worked his way into the Ducks' end net front, he and GUDBRANSON became tangled up near the crease. While the 2 opponents began skating out of Anaheim's zone, is when the 2 decided to exchange pleasantries while falling down yet again. But it's what happened directly after that that gave GUDBRANSON a quick boot from the second period. After regaining his footing, Lemieux could be shown giving the defenseman a clear invitation to drop the gloves. Therefore, in response, GUDBRANSON decided to shed his mitts, only to be fooled by his opponent as Lemieux skated away as if nothing had happened. And in result, GUDBRANSON's stick ended up taking the brunt of his frustration, as he could be shown breaking his stick on the bench, which is why he ended up receiving a 10-minute misconduct penalty, on top of the 2-minute sit in the send-in that he had already received. Similarly to the last incident, this one is simultaneously comical and infuriating. Well, not so comical if your name is Jamie Benn, that is. As the Rangers were attempting a comeback late in MSG, they began applying the pressure with an extra skater on ice. But as Brendan Lemieux appeared to net the 4th goal on the board for the Blue Shirts, it quickly became apparent that all was not as it seemed. Shortly prior to going bar down on Anton Khudobin, Lemieux had decided to disarm the Stars captain by knocking Ben's stick out of his hands. This not only gave the Rangers an obviously unfair advantage, but also enraged number 14, who decided to jump Lemieux net front in order to express his disapproval. This, as you would expect, resulted in roughing penalties for both parties involved. By now, most of you know fair and well that Brendan Lemieux is a dirty player who is expected to do dirty things. While this moment here still isn't the classiest act, it's one that's more open to interpretation than anything, meaning that yes, obviously there's things Lemieux could have done to limit the severity of the hit, but considering the angle of it, etc, at least in my book, it's not the worst jerk moment on this list. During the middle frame of a match in Sin City, play quickly came to a screeching halt with a little over 3 minutes left in the period, as it quickly became apparent that Cody Glass was incapacitated in the Golden Knights' end. Reason being, he had unfortunately taken an elbow up high, courtesy of number 48. Now obviously Lemieux leaving his feet on the hit wasn't the best look, but you can choose, if you so wish, to give Lemieux the benefit of the doubt, as he couldn't exactly see where his elbow was going. In result of the collision, Glass was forced to exit the game prematurely. Regardless of your personal take, the NHL decided the play was deserving of a $5,000 fine for elbowing. Definitely moving into more brutal territory from here on out, the next turn of events will take us over to Finland and back in time to Lemieux's era with the Winnipeg Jets. So first, yes, this is a global series, so not the best look in that regard to begin with. Anyways, tempers began to flare midway through an NHL contest in Helsinki after Vincent TROCHEK became the victim of a dangerous-looking hit in the neutral zone, courtesy of Brendan Lemieux. As Lemieux was making his way towards the Jets' end, he decided to sideswipe TROCHEK up high. In response to the hit, Mackenzie Weegar then came to his teammate's aid while immediately dropping the gloves with the forward. After the fact, Lemieux was then ejected from the game for an illegal check to the head. Besides having to answer in game for his actions, Lemieux also was punished by player safety as well, as he was made to forfeit around $9,000 in salary due to a 2-game suspension. As the headhunting escapades continue, this time we'll be heading to the Mile High City in Colorado. During a regular season game between the Avalanche and Rangers, things quickly took a scary turn for forward JOONAS DONSKOI towards the end of the final frame of play, as DONSKOI, who was fixed on trying to make a quick goal happen in the Rangers' end, unsuspectingly received a hit to the head, compliments of his opponents. DONSKOI, after being helped off the playing surface by teammates, immediately entered concussion protocol. In result, following the concussion, as far as in-game discipline is concerned, Lemieux was dealt a minor penalty for interference, but this was only the beginning for the perpetrator, as he was made to sit out for 2 of the Rangers' Stanley Cup qualifying games in the bubble in 2020, due to a suspension for, quote, interference. And yes, you guessed correctly, as we'll be capping off this video with the most recent jerk moment on this list. Now let me tell you, I thought that this suspension was never going to come through. Anyways, the average NHL spectator on the Saturday after Thanksgiving had to be thrilled with the amount of excitement displayed, as we witnessed the Milan Lucic ejection, the Landeskog-Ekholm tussle, and lastly, the most surprising incident of them all, the biting incident between Brendan Lemieux and Brady Tkachuk. Now most of us who know our hockey history know fair and well that Claude Lemieux and Keith Tkachuk had their own rivalry on ice decades prior, which was passed down to their sons years later. In the remaining minutes of what had been a close game in Los Angeles, the intensity in the building began to skyrocket, following a stoppage in play in Ottawa's end. Following a couple light cross-checks from Tkachuk, Lemieux decided to take the bait and began engaging with his opponent near the boards. After the two toppled down to the ice and officials were able to break up the tussle, it quickly became clear that something you don't see every day in professional sports had happened. After Lemieux had left the altercation, Brady immediately began pointing with a purpose at his hand while claiming that he was bitten by Lemieux during the skirmish. After jawing a bit with Tkachuk in the penalty box, Lemieux was then given a one-way ticket to the dressing room due to receiving a match penalty. And shortly prior to the Kings' meeting against the Anaheim Ducks, it was then announced that Lemieux had been dealt a 5-game suspension for biting and made to forfeit over $38,000 while sitting in the press box.